We haven't made a video in almost a year, and when we finally do make something, I can't even give them good audio quality because I'm sick and I'm filling my mouth with Vicks VapoRub mint lozenges. I don't fucking
Vicks
like
flavored?
mint. Vicks flavored? I mean, Vicks is already mint flavored, isn't it?
I guess, but I wouldn't eat Vicks out of the container.
I'm not. It's a lozenge. They're meant to be eaten.
I know. I just the idea of Vicks being flavored is weird to me. Can you taste it on your skin? With the taste of your lips, I'm on a ride.
With the taste of your Vicks, I'm on a ride.
There we go. That's a good opening.
Okay, so we're talking about Pokemon.
This is a Pokemon club chat? I think so.
It's club chat.
That we agreed
This is
on.
the club chat.
But specifically, it's about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
Scarlet and Violet, the newest games to the series. We're a little late on this, but that's mostly because we were like, we should record one. And then we played Arceus for a week and did nothing else.
We just played video games for a while, which I think is probably the best thing we could have done. But
in a way, it's a testament to how good Scarlet and Violet was in that we wanted more Pokemon.
yeah,
And that a Pokemon game has not done that to me in quite some time.
it's been a while since the Pokemon itch has been scratched for me.
Yeah, same here. I mean, laying out where I'm starting here, like, I had kind of lost faith in Pokemon as a franchise prior to Scarlet and Violet. Scarlet and Violet. Now, I want to talk about the gravity of that statement, because I was born in 1998, and Pokemon Silver version was literally the first video game I ever played, and I've pretty much played every single mainline entry, plus a bunch of the side content. I played Pokemon Rangers as a kid. It's not even Mystery Dungeon. That one wasn't even all that good. But yeah, there was definitely, it felt like there was a decline in the quality of the series right around the transition to 3D. I don't want to say the transition to 3D is what made Pokemon bad, because that's a brain dead take. But I do feel like Kalos is about the point where Pokemon got a little too comfortable with the fact that it was just going to be successful no matter what.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bold or novel statement. I think a lot of people feel that way. From there, it was just kind of a slow decline until Pokemon Sword and Shield, which I really, really, really wanted to like and went to bat for a few times, but in the end, looking back on it, it wasn't a very good game.
No, I mean, it was just kind of middle of the road. It wasn't terrible. It just was nothing new. And I think that's the issue, is it's just kind of been the same game a dozen times, which, you know, on paper, that is what every Pokemon game is. There's just a slight adjustment, but you kind of need a new taste.
Yeah, there's a hollowness that comes with Pokemon games not really trying to innovate. I don't want to say it's all about innovation, because I think a big part of it for me is just that the games felt a lot more lifeless. They felt very shallow. They felt like everybody was kind of just showing up to get a paycheck, and what I mean is the characters in the game were just showing up for a paycheck.
They're all phoning it in. These actors
Yeah.
who have done this a dozen billion times. Pikachu is just so tired and old at this point.
Yeah, it's hard to explain because the concept of a game having heart is hard to quantify,
Yeah.
but there's something lacking. I'm trying to figure out when is the last time that Pokemon as a game had a profound emotional impact on me, you know, actually elicited some true emotion. And be that in setting me up with a great challenge, be that through storytelling, be that making me obsess over a character. All those qualify, but when I look back at X and Y, or Sun and Moon, or Sword and Shield, I just don't have that much attachment. It was all very short term. It felt like McDonald's. It was a very brief, non-nutritious meal.
Yeah. Typically when it comes to Pokemon games, I'll always kind of fall back on one every so often, whether I'm playing a totally legal version of it on a computer, or just like going back through any old DS cartridges that I have, and you know, it's fun to boot it up and play it again. But yeah, it's like that last chunk, I don't really think I've ever gone back to Sun and Moon or X or Y.
Yeah.
Even like Alpha Ruby and Omega Sapphire. God, I forgot that they're Alpha and Omega. But yeah, like these newer ones, they were games. I played them, and once they're done, they just don't get any revisits from me. And I think that is kind of a testament to the quality of it overall. It just doesn't really grip you as much as it wants to.
Yeah, the best way to portray it, a friend of the channel asked me recently to explain what Chairman Rose's evil plot was
From Sword
in Sword and Shield, and I was just like, man, fuck if I know. It's a Dynamax energy.
I was so convinced it was something to do with like spectacle and getting views for the sports angle, but it was like just something to do with creating energy.
It was like an energy crisis.
And it was, I don't know, it felt like it was completely out of touch with the greater themes of that game.
Yeah, there was a lack of cohesiveness. And speaking of cohesiveness, we should probably transition to a game that, even though its cohesion might be a little cheesy, does a whole lot better. That's Scarlet and Violet. We should probably start talking about that now. We've set up how we felt about Pokemon. And now, Scarlet and Violet was not a day one purchase to me because I had finally had enough of Pokemon and I had said like, okay, for the first time ever, I am not getting a Pokemon game at launch. I am going to wait, well, bar Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, because what the fuck. But this was the first time I was not getting a new mainline Pokemon game day one. I said to myself, I'm going to give it like a week or two and see what people think. And I was very surprised when people were like, yeah, this is the best Pokemon game I've played in a long time. And then I peer pressured Kyle into getting it as well.
Yep, I waited even longer because I said, I don't know, I've been seeing a lot of videos and that game looks really janky. And then eventually I bit the bullet and I bought it, and I did actually enjoy playing the game. I was having fun playing a Pokemon game. It was a strange new feeling. I was like, wow, this is like Pokemon, but it's kind of different in an exciting way.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing with Scarlet and Violet. It feels like something fresh and new in a Pokemon game. It feels exciting to be in that sort of that mindset again.
Yeah, and without further ado, do we want to talk a little bit about just the gameplay proper?
Yeah, like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I think its big sell is that it's this large overworld version of a Pokemon game. I mean, we've seen the 3D, but for the most part, the games in the 3D Pokemon era have all been very structured and linear, and so it was just kind of visually an upgrade. But this, I mean, it's much more open, and that, I think, changes everything. Like, it allows you to interact with Pokemon in the overworld in a way that you couldn't before. It allows you to just battle anywhere on the spot. Open is, I guess, the best way to describe what they've got going on now.
Yeah, and I really like one aspect of the open world is the fact that it kind of has this loosey-goosey approach to how you're actually going to go through the game. One of our big criticisms of Sword and Shield is that it's just a straight line of a game.
Yeah.
And it's a really quick sprint from point A to point B. Whereas they don't really emphasize it this much, but once you have the 3 main routes unlocked for Scarlet and Violet, they're kind of just like, yeah, go wherever, do whatever you want. And that leads to a lot of different experiences. It also leads to a lot of different challenge thresholds. Like, the first city that I went to was Artisan, because I was really interested in the Path of Legend, so I wanted to go to the closest Titan route. And that was not the easiest gym. It wasn't the hardest, but it was definitely a higher challenge than what I had been used to in Pokemon games. So, like, my battle with the grass gym, my battle with Melly, the fire type Team Star member, those really had me sweating, which is a great feeling in Pokemon, because I'm so used to at this point just steamrolling everything. Not even because I'm over leveled, but just because I know how to play the game properly.
Yeah. No, I had a similar sort of experience. I didn't really hone in on any particular route at the beginning, but the big thing for me was as soon as you get your ride Pokemon, your Miraidon or Co-Rhydon, depending on which game you're playing, you're sort of given the boot. You said like, all right, go out there, enjoy yourself. And there are, I guess, structural roadblocks in place that are meant to deter you from certain paths. Like, there's water in certain places that you're kind of not meant to go over unless you can, like, float around it from upgrades to your Pokemon. But even then, you can work your way around it. If you're creative and you study your environment and you jump around and explore, you can find other routes to do late game battles. And that was one of the things that I was, like, super excited about, because, when you don't have a lot of tools in your tool belt and you're expected to just kind of go out there and solve problems using what you have, it's a lot more compelling, at least for me.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I mean, Grusha's gym was the 4th gym I took on, and Grusha is...
That's meant to be like the last one, right?
One of either the like 7th or 8th, yeah, by levels. And it was a hard fight. Luckily, I had a really tanky Azumarill setup, but like, it was so interesting to be able to, in some sense of the word, jank my way to a place that I shouldn't have been yet.
Yeah, and it really rewards you, I think, for getting to go there and do those things early. In that way, like you were describing, the sense of challenge and this accompanied sense of accomplishment for actually overcoming these late game areas. And, it's like, we call them late game specifically in that there's this weird level threshold, but at the end of the day, anything can be early game if you can get there. And that's the Breath of the Wild effect, right? Like, that's the pure open world that people love. People crave that. It's great for challenge freaks like me, like hardcore gamers.
We're kind of professional gamers. Don't know if you've noticed. Hair flip.
Yeah, there's this element of choosing your own gym order, choosing which paths you want to go to, choosing which areas of the world you want to explore, and as a result, getting to see like the Pokemon that are there. It's fun. It's exciting. It's enriching.
Yeah.
That's what I want from a game, is to be enriched.
Yeah, and I don't think I've gotten that from Pokemon in a really long time. I think something that adds to that exponentially is just the Pokemon roaming around. I like that. I didn't much care for the system of the wild areas in Swish. I thought it was interesting, but they didn't really do much with it. The fact that, like, tall grass is no longer a thing in Pokemon, they're just all on the overworld, be it in Arceus or in Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah.
I love it so much. It feels so much better. I like being able to see these Pokemon in their habitats and, like, be able to choose what battles I'm getting into. You know? And it doesn't eliminate the entirety of, like, random battles because, you know, you'll just be standing there and a Hawlucha is gonna attack you.
Guy just runs up and kicks you in the nuts.
Yeah, that happened to you earlier today.
Yeah.
But it also makes catching Pokemon more fun. It also makes filling the Pokédex more fun. That's something that I never tried to do before until this game where, you know, I could actually go to an area and be like, okay, I don't need Snorunt, I don't need Setotl. Oh, there's Frostlass, I need that.
Yeah.
Being able to not have to rely on RNG to actually find Pokemon, well, I mean, there's some reliance, but, you know, I'll know immediately whether or not the Pokemon I need is there or not.
No, I was never a Dex chaser. I was never someone who tried to fill out the Pokedex in older games because it felt like an uphill battle, just going into the tall grass again and again. But as soon as I had booted up Scarlet and Violet, I remember being in a call with you and telling you, like, wow, I actually enjoy catching Pokemon. This is the first in a while that I just like catching them.
I think Arceus really did a great job with not only pioneering the open world aspect for a Pokemon game, sort of, but making catching fun again, which I think is maybe overlooked in how important that is for a series like Pokemon, which originated from like somebody's love of catching bugs, you know?
Yeah, if you're gonna make a series around trying to catch and obtain all of these creatures, maybe the act of catching should be enjoyable in of itself.
Yeah. And I love that there are actually incentives for it now. Like, every 10 Pokemon you add to your Pokédex, you get a new little prize.
Yeah, it's great. It makes you feel like you're doing something. Yeah, no, more to that point of being out in the open world and seeing them all roam around. I think the really nice thing that I noticed, I'm sure a lot of other people have noticed it, I've seen tons of posts about it online, just the different behaviors that you observe in a lot of different Pokemon. The way they, like, act and interact in the world. Certain Pokemon are, like, they'll burrow away if you get too close. Some are very, like, good with you being around and won't run away. They're good just walking around. Some Pokemon will just hide exclusively in trees.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see them be more a part of the environment as opposed to just walking around, which I guess is all you can really say about the Sword and Shield version of that, when they would just sometimes be walking around in 3D models and other times they'd be in the tall grass. Here it feels more like you're in an environment where Pokemon would exist, and that was, I think, the most compelling thing to me about seeing them in the open world.
Yeah. I don't think it quite hits the same high as Arceus, which we can talk about later, but having a mainline Pokemon game that makes an attempt to capture what it feels like to live in a Pokemon world. That's refreshing. That's so much fun. This is why I like the series, because it's one of the most interesting fantasy worlds out there. Yeah. And they should actually utilize that.
No, absolutely. Oh yeah, and then also, I mean, everybody loves this. Everybody loves this in a Pokemon game. You can have your Pokemon walk beside you.
Yes.
That's lovely. You know, it's never not a good time, because part of, I think, the appeal of Pokemon is that you feel bonded to the little creatures you carry around. So yeah, you should be able to walk around with them. You should be able to take pictures of them with them.
You should be able to eat a sandwich with them.
You should be able to have an image of a sandwich behind you and suck yourself off in the cutscene and then smile.
Yeah. We'll get to the jank in this game in just a minute, but before that I also want to say that I absolutely love what they've done with the picnic system, that it actually is an important system to playing the game now, in that it's still optional. But the fact that, you know, if I want to train up a bunch of Pokemon, I can go and I can make a ham sandwich and spawn a bunch of Chansey to just, like, power level a group of Pokemon. Or, you know, if I'm looking for a certain dragon type, or if I'm looking for a shiny Flittle, you know. Yeah. There are ways that you can use those. You can actually use the cooking system now, and I think that's great.
I hadn't touched sandwiches a whole bunch just because it was like, I thought of it like the curry in Sword and Shield. I was like, oh yeah, you can make food, whatever. But I think more to the point, I enjoy, like, getting to play this, like, Mario Party minigame style thing in the creation of it. It definitely feels a lot more fun and energetic than the curry making was, because I tried playing a little bit of Sword and Shield again this morning, and yeah, the curry stuff was, there's a little bit of, you have to spin the control stick and you have to like press a button very fast, but it doesn't hit the same mark as trying desperately to put ingredients on a piece of bread and then failing miserably, creating just a piece of bread with like 2 pieces of tofu on it and saying, that's my sandwich.
I've definitely, against my will, screamed at the game, just in horror when my sandwich has fallen over.
Poor sandwich embarrassment.
Sandwich cringe compilation.
It only makes it more exciting when you have other people there with you, which that is also a huge point for Scarlet and Violet, is it's like a real multiplayer Pokemon game.
Yeah, I mean, the multiplayer isn't terribly prevalent in playing directly alongside each other, except for the tarot raids.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just being able to hang out in the same world, to throw my little Pokemon at my friend and show them my giant Dragonite, that's so much fun. I like that. It's like parallel playing a Pokemon game.
Yeah, I mean, half of what me and Sam do just on the regular is just we'll play 2 games in the same space, like in a Discord call, and just kind of like hang out like that. And so getting to actually be a part of each other's games and like explore the world, even if you're not doing the same stuff together, even if you're like halfway across the world doing something else, it's still fun. It still feels cool. And then every once in a while you bump into each other and you're like, hey, you're someone who exists in my world. You're a real person.
Yeah,
it's very nice.
Very nice. You want to talk about the elephant in the room here?
Oh, absolutely.
So, we all saw what the headlines were when this game came out, and it is true that this game is kind of buggy. It's kind of glitchy.
It's got some pretty poor performance. That poor performance is only made worse when you have other people in your world, and there are a bunch of bugs as well. And that is, it's worth talking about because it's a lot to do with how I think Game Freak just feels they have to put out these games every year.
Yeah.
Or every 2 years now, depending on what they're doing. I don't know, but
usually it's like 2 years for one of the new mainline games, and it's every other year then too for a remake.
Yeah.
But those are still full games that they're putting out every single year, sometimes with less than a year between games. Like Arceus came out in January and Scarlet and Violet came out in late November. And even if those are different teams, it's a bad model.
No, it's terrible.
That's crunching devs, and it inevitably leads to what we have here, where we have games that you are going to encounter glitches during your run. Now, the severity of those glitches varies, and I don't want to overstate their severity, just because I think a lot of that has been done, and a lot of people have made quite a bit of outrage content, just being like, "Wow, this game is super busted, I can't believe the new Pokemon sucks so bad."
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to just write it off as like, oh, they're minor, they're ignorable. The word of the day is nuance, because it is unacceptable on some level that, the most profitable company in the world is putting out this sort of product. And that a lot of these issues still haven't been patched out. They shouldn't be shipping a product like that, and patches should not be the solution. At the same time, though, the amount that these glitches will affect your gameplay has been greatly overstated.
No, absolutely.
Usually it is just visual bugs.
There's the visual bugs. I think the worst part of it for me is just poor performance. I think I got into the mindset of it being all right most of the way through Scarlet and Violet because you kind of adapt to it. After seeing the game run at that, lower frame rate, you're like, okay, I'll set my brain to this frame rate and I'll just play it and I'll ignore it. And it's not like the game is ruined as a result, but it would be nicer if it were smoother. If the game was a faster and more competent sort of thing. But yeah, it's not like you're falling out of the world every second. It's not like the game is a total disaster. I mean, hell, we were gathering B-roll footage earlier, and I was trying to do some of the old bugs that people recorded, and I couldn't do it anymore. I don't know if that's to do with patches they've released, or if I just don't know the right methods, but it feels a little bit, at least at this stage, more together. It's not falling apart at the seams, but yeah, it's a result of crunch culture, unfortunately, and I mean, the same can be said of a lot of AAA games, but, back in the day when Game Freak was releasing these small little top-down RPGs that were pixelated, that's fine. You can release a new game every year because you can reuse a lot of the assets, you can just add a few new worlds, and the programming is still the same, but the more ambitious Pokemon games get, the more they try and push the mold with like big open world multiplayer strange new Pokemon stuff. They need to take more time with it. They need to put more time in the oven, because like I know everybody brings it back to fucking Breath of the Wild, but Breath of the Wild took 4 to 6 years, depending on which game you consider was the last Legend of Zelda game to put out, and everybody praised it for how tremendous its world felt and how smooth it was. So I think if you're trying to create a Pokemon game at that scale, the same amount of time, if not more, needs to be put towards that, because there's only so much you can do with hiring more teams to develop the game in tandem with the teams you already have. Mm-hmm. Sometimes things just need time to develop, and that is, I think, the only thing you can really do to improve upon this.
Yeah, it's hard to forgive Pokemon Company for this sort of proceedings, and I really hope that they're going to get it together in the future, because it seems like a lot of the stuff they've done recently between Arceus and Scarlet and Violet has listened to the criticisms that are being lobbed at them.
Yeah.
And one of the most common ones now is just, we need to fix those performance issues. Like, I want to go back and replay Sun and Moon. I never finished them because, like, performance issues were too much for me. And I'm not really a person who cares about graphics, but when I think about my time with Sun and Moon, all I remember is how much the totem Pokemon battles, or whatever they were called, chugged. I just remember the chugging and how displeasing that was, to the point where I didn't want to pick up the game anymore.
Yeah, it takes you out of it. It ruins that moment that would have otherwise been really, really exciting, because you're brought back to reality of like, okay, this is really limited by the hardware it's on.
Yeah.
And I guess you can also say that about Scarlet and Violet, because, the Switch is like, how old now? Nintendo Switch has been out for ages.
It's like 5 years?
It's like 5 years old now, and most consoles will... I mean, it's definitely reaching the end of its life, and I'm sure they're probably going to release some new version of the Switch or some sort of upgrade to it, and maybe Scarlet and Violet was developed with a new console in mind. I don't know. But it's, people like to spit out that sort of like, oh, it's pushing the limits of the Switch hardware. And to an extent it is, but at the same time, I think, it's a mix of both, right? It's a mix of hardware issues and their software stuff. I know I was reading somewhere online that like the open world is kind of always rendered.
Yeah.
And it's just, everything is always there, and I think that has to do with the multiplayer aspect of wanting to have a world where anyone can go anywhere at any point in tandem with another person. But
I like that concept, but honestly, I would be okay sacrificing it.
Yeah, I'm okay with it being a little bit more like reduced multiplayer if it means that everything else is nice and smooth.
I really liked Arceus's take on having this big sprawling open world, in that it was cut into 5 different chunks. Mm-hmm. And like, that's not technically totally open world. You do have to go back to the hub before you go anywhere else. But the worlds that existed, those 5 worlds within, those were so smooth and so well defined.
Yeah, and they were also fairly large in of themselves.
Yeah.
It harkened to like the Monster Hunter style of world design, where you just kind of have larger overworlds that you can explore, and that's fine with me. I don't need a giant, cohesive, massive open world. Like, you can pick up any AAA game on the shelves these days, and 9 times out of 10, it's gonna have some capacity of open world. You don't need it to have a good game. It doesn't have to be gigantic. It just should feel fun to play in the space they've created.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's something that's going to fall to tastes too, but end of the day, I hope Game Freak improves this. I really do. Scarlet and Violet is not unplayable, and it's alright for the most part, but there are definitely some areas that it could be better, and if they just gave it more time, I think it could be really sweet. Absolutely.
It's the way that I've been looking at Pokemon for a long time, and it sucks that this was my mentality going into Scarlet and Violet, but I'll see a Pokemon game released, and I'll see how the performance is, or what the concept is, or whatever, and I'll think, that looks interesting. I'm sure the next game that they'll release will be the good one, because it feels like each new release is like a step towards something better, and building upon that, they get to someplace good. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought about Legends Arceus. I saw what they were showing off there,
Legends
and
Arceus is the good one.
yeah, I saw all the trailers and promotional material for Arceus, and I said, "Oh, that looks interesting. I'm sure whatever they'll release next will be even better." And that's why I didn't get it. But no, I mean, we played Scarlet and Violet, and then we went back to Legends Arceus to see how that was in comparison.
And we sat for the last week of 2022, and we pretty much just played Legends Arceus.
Literally
we woke up
every day.
We logged on to Discord, we streamed our screens playing Legends Arceus together, and then we went to bed.
It was very, very good. And
it's a good fucking game.
But this is not a Legends Arceus video. It's a Scarlet and Violet. It could be. It could be if we wanted it.
If I want to make it an Arceus video, though... I want to make an actual video. That's what it deserves.
Oh, absolutely.
Volo.
God damn it. No, Scarlet and Violet is good, and I enjoyed my time with it, but I also know in my heart that it is almost like a beta of whatever the next better version of it is going to be. Mm-hmm. It's always just a stepping stone to something bigger, and I don't know, hopefully whatever the next one is, they'll be able to do what they did with Scarlet and Violet and also not have massive frame rate issues.
Yeah. At the very least, for the first time in a very long time, in years, I can say I have a lot of hope in my heart for wherever Pokemon goes next.
Yeah.
And before we close out here, do we want to talk a little bit about something that Scarlet and Violet did really, really well, in my opinion, hit it out of the park with, and that's the storytelling and the characters?
Absolutely.
So as we know, it kind of had an also somewhat non-linear approach to this, where it set you up with 3 different missions that involve 3 distinct characters of Arven, Penny, and Nimona, and just said, all right, go get them. I ended up really liking this, and I was surprised by how much this game was able to endear me to these characters, especially when, 2 out of the 3 characters right off the bat, I was like, I don't think I really like these 2. Penny immediately rubbed me the wrong way. This is not hate. I was just like, I don't know. I don't love her vibe. She feels like she's a character who's supposed to be pandering to, like, a certain audience. But by the end of the game, like, god damn, what a cute and nice story about this, like, group of friends trying to stand up for themselves, things kind of going wrong and getting out of hand.
Yeah.
And then, like, coming back together in the end. It's a simple story, but it didn't feel terribly ham-fisted, and I enjoyed every little part of it. I enjoyed the characters. As always, the game has excellent character design. I felt like defeat 30 Pokemon. It was a little clunky, as are a lot of new things they tried, but overall, the actual basis of the story being told there, I really enjoyed it. I really love Clive. Can we talk about Clive?
Oh god, yes. It took me a second to remember who Clive was.
You would forget your friend Clive? He's the coolest kid in the school.
That guy was cool. That guy was awesome, and I really liked that. That was one of those moments where, they did something, and I was like, oh, that's actually really funny. That's a clever thing. When I started off that game, I think my first instinct was, wow, the principal of this school seems like a jackass. I'm sure he's evil. And then the next cutscene that I saw was Clive, and I thought, oh, okay, never mind, this is fun.
Yeah, and I love that you have an authority figure, and, like, especially an older one who they really drive home this point that he doesn't quite understand kids these days. Oh, yeah. But he has a good heart, and, like, he's trying very hard to help these kids. Even before he knows what led to the formation of Team Star, the fact that he's like, we're not here to punish them, we have to figure out what's going on and kind of rehabilitate these students. I love how that story worked out. It was so heartening to see, like, an authority figure in a Pokemon game. That's not to say I dislike and it's a problem that authority figures are usually the bad guys, but seeing somebody who actually cared this much about his students' well-being, I also love the part where they're like, okay, actually, Director Clavel was Cassiopeia the entire time, because I think it's a very universal experience, as we all knew that Penny was Cassiopeia. And then they pull that, and I'm like, damn, for real? Was I wrong?
Yeah, there's a moment of doubt there, and I felt something. I felt something true and real. I was, like, actually taken aback by the story in a Pokemon game. And then, of course, it's one of those
fake outs.
One of those fake outs, but it's still a fun moment. It's still an enjoyable time. Then you've got Nimona, and
Nimona's straightforward, and I don't think that's a bad thing. She wants to battle, and she's the gyms and the victory road. And at first I kind of panned that, because I'm like, there's nothing going on here. All of the other stories have so much more heart. But that's almost the point, right? that Nemona is your classic experience of a Pokemon game, of going through the gyms, fighting your rival, and then, fighting the Elite Four and the champion.
She's a necessity. If they were to get rid of that, I'm sure a lot of people would be deeply upset and angry, because some people just play Pokemon games so that they can do the gym challenge, fight the champion, and be done with it.
Yeah.
If anything, it feels like the core of the game, and to get rid of that would turn it into a game that's about Pokemon, but not a Pokemon game.
It would be a different kind of game. It would be more of a Legends Arceus. Play Legends Arceus.
So the fact that Nemona is so straightforward, I mean, obviously a lot of people can reduce her character down to, I want to battle, and
Pokemon
she is
Xenos.
that. Pokemon Xenos from Final Fantasy XIV, for those who don't know.
For those who are wondering why we haven't put out a video in 8 months.
Yeah. But yeah, she at the end of the day, she's all right. She's not super strong or compelling. In fact, compared to the other two, the most compelling character by far, and the one who carries the story, is
Arven!
Oh,
my boy Arven.
The man with the hair and the dog.
The man with the hair and the dog.
His stuff was, he's just well written. He's just a compelling character to be around, and a good one in the story, but also the part of the game that he's attached to is also kind of interesting and cool. All the stuff with the Titans harkens back to the Gigantamax stuff that you saw in Sword and Shield. It feels a little bit like doing smaller, watered-down Gigantamax raids, but yeah, Arven and his whole story is tremendously well done.
Yeah, I think Arven is one of the more complex Pokemon characters, if not the most, that I've seen in recent years, just by the kind of emotional depth he has and how you can reasonably see somebody like that happening from the past that he's had. He kind of has this very hot and cold personality where, sometimes he's snapping at people and sometimes he's being very sweet. And, good God, that makes sense with, everything this boy has been through and the upbringing or lack thereof that he's had. And, his trouble with his parent figure leaving him and then, him nearly losing the only other companion he has.
Yeah, he's got a very real trauma that's established within the game, and he's just clinging on to any hope that he has to support his poor partner Pokemon who's kind of going through it. And how can you not look at that and go, I want to help this guy?
How can you not look at Big Buppy?
He's a man who loves his dog and wants to save his dog from dying. And if you look at that and go, I'd rather do the gym challenge, that's boring, then I'm sorry, but you don't have a heart.
We can't be friends if you don't love the big puppy.
There's just a very clear, better story of the three, and that's not to diminish what they've got going on in the other two. It's just a fact that the Arven story is by far the best. Mm-hmm. And do we want to get into endgame spoilers?
We're at the end of the video, so we can just throw out, it's a spoiler warning. We're going to talk about the endgame, what happens past the champion and everything.
Yeah. No, the fact that what happens after you beat the champion is kind of Arven-led it makes sense. His is so strong that whatever happens next, obviously all of your companions are there for it.
Which I love. I love exploring the crater with everyone and hearing everybody's banter. And I think that's the part that really won Nemona over for me, is the fact that she just is so straightforward and has blinders and no brain that Arven will be like, this is where my dog was gravely injured. And she was like, ha, that could never be me. Let's go.
Let's go fight something strong. It does definitely feel like these three separate characters were designed for their interactions together as a group, which I like. I think it's very fun to see everybody together and bouncing off of each other in fun ways. I love the stuff in Area Zero. I love the entire concept and presentation of the Great Crater of Paldea. But yeah, no, that part of the game, it's Arven led. It's all about him and his familia and unlocking a little bit of those weird secret stuff, little hints that you've gotten throughout the game about his past. And yeah, I think it's incredibly well done. I think that was some of my favorite parts of that game.
The rush of just delight and joy when you get that cutscene of everybody getting on your Miraidon or Koraidon.
Oh, yeah.
And jumping down into the pit. That was... I felt so much in this Pokemon game, and it was so refreshing, and it was so nice.
Heartwarming.
That's a very good word for it. And my God, the end there kind of goes hard. I like it when Pokemon can dip into things that are a little bit more mature without being edgy about it. And I think the point of this game that really blew me away the most was, AI parents saying, Arvin, I've always loved you, and Arvin just being like, you can't do that.
You don't get
you
to
can't
say
do
that to me.
And AI being like fair before their death. I think that it is very rare to see a game that hits on something that mature and does it well and doesn't just go for the easy reconciliation.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like the Pokemon bad guy formula, at least in these past couple games, they've been trying to find a way to do it in a new and improved way, because every Pokemon game has always been about, there's the bad guy team and you fight the leader of the bad guy team because the bad guy team wants to do something with the legendary. That's it. Yeah. And then you got Sun and Moon, which was trying to do a fake out with Guzma and his team, and then Pokemon Sword and Shield trying to do a fake out with Team Yell. So we've had two of these fake outs, and it's usually the authority figure that ends up being the bad guy, thus me thinking, the principal's probably a villain.
What's he cooking?
What is he cooking? But I can honestly say that I really, really enjoyed this Pokemon game's antagonist because it didn't feel like a stock character. It felt kind of like a natural and understandable force of antagonism, I guess.
Yeah. It's somebody who becomes so blinded by passion that they begin to believe that the harm they're doing is justifiable.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. Like, there was no evil team surrounding the professor.
Nope.
It was just straight up, they were pursuing their passion no matter the costs. And you got this really sweet lead up of seeing that cost in that, not just in Area Zero, in like seeing the destroyed labs, but Arvin throughout the entire game, Arvin and everything he is like crystallized the cost of somebody who goes down that route.
Absolutely. Both the personal and quite literal physical cost in what happened to Mabosstiff. Like, you understand, sure enough, like, oh yeah, this is not a good thing. This is clearly doing harm to the environment, to the ecosystem, to the people around us. So you have every reason to try and stop that.
Just the understated tragedy of the fact that you have a brilliant Pokemon professor who can build a time machine, but they can't take the time to help their son's dog.
Oh yeah.
That hurts.
Pokemon loves doing bad parents.
They love bad parents.
There's so many bad parents, and
there's so many bad parents in the world, to be fair.
Well, yeah, it just makes me wonder, like, who hurt you? Who at Game Freak has been hurt? After this has been done so many times, it's like, wow. That's why you should never trust your parents, kids. Use their credit card to buy more Pokemon games.
Use their credit card to buy Pokemon Legends Arceus. Play that.
Play that instead. That's the great one.
Let's take ibuprofen together and play Legends Arceus.
Yes, let's do it. No, it was a good story. It was fun, and of course, all of the presentation's great. The music, tremendous. Mr. Toby Fox.
Mr. Fox at it again. It's so nice to see him succeed.
Area Zero music, it was breathtaking. I felt like I was playing a different game. I felt like I was playing a Nier game. It's very reminiscent of Nier in all of that Area Zero stuff. And
you don't expect from Pokemon.
Yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed it. So
yeah,
that's all you can really say at the end of the day with this game is if you can come away from Scarlet and Violet having enjoyed it or having a positive experience despite any of its flaws, then I'd say the game is worthwhile.
There are caveats, there are definite flaws, and if some people say this game is not worth the flaws, I can respect that. But for me, this is the best Pokemon experience I've had since Black and White, and being such a big Pokemon fan, I had a really weird moment around Christmas, because every year I don't decorate a Christmas tree normally. I just put up my 50 plus Pokemon plushies on there. And in the wake of Scarlet and Violet, I was putting up my tree and I was realizing, I haven't bought a Pokemon plushie in a really long time because I haven't felt compelled in the series. And now I'm looking at my plushie collection, and for the first time in years, I'm feeling something. I'm feeling endeared to this. I feel like I want a new plushie.
Yeah.
And weirdly, that was a profound experience for me, in that rekindling my love for this series that has been with me for literally my entire life.
For a lot of people, the enjoyment of Pokemon is built on a foundation of nostalgia. And in any of that, I feel like there's always going to be doubt and fear about its new works. And with the past couple of Pokemon games, that's reasonable. But for the first time in a while, I feel like I could enjoy a Pokemon game that had just come out. A new, fresh Pokemon. It was very, very nice to have that feeling. I felt like I had lived in a Pokemon world.
Truly, we were living in a Pokemon world. And I think that's our session there.
That's our take on that.
Yeah, a nice nuanced discussion of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, warts and all.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, thank you all very much. This has been Sam and Kyle at the Digital Dream Club. You can support our channel on Patreon or just by leaving a like and a comment. You can subscribe if you want more. We are making more content now. It's just going to be slower than before. Yeah. But thank you so much for sticking around. Feels good to be back. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and go play Legends Arceus.
Please do. All right, have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.